Express Series, English for Human Resources by Pat Pledger. Unit 4, Exercise 2. Natasha, Shop Floor Team Leader.
You know, I only started here 4 months ago, but I'm already thinking about leaving. Jerry, the shop floor supervisor, is always correcting me, always telling me that things are done differently here, and he's so negative. He never gives any real help. And my team is also against me. I just don't know how much longer I can cope. I don't feel in control of the situation.
Miguel, Marketing Director.
Listen, I'm having trouble with a major project. I have put together a team of marketing staff from all our different branches, not just here, but all over the world, to work together to update our global marketing procedures. The problem is that nobody attends the meetings, and progress is slow. Several members have already asked to leave the project.
Janet, Departmental Manager.
I need help with a problem employee. He's making a lot of mistakes and is argumentative with colleagues. What's more, he's taken 20 days sick leave in the last year, and other employees are complaining about it. Several clients have also recently complained about his attitude.
Holger, Project Manager.
I've been here 7 years, and I desperately need some training on the latest regulations and accounting procedures in my field. I'm now coordinating an international project, and it's embarrassing that I know almost nothing about EU law. My boss tells me we're too busy for training courses, but it's essential that I'm totally up to date. What do you recommend? Can you talk to my boss?
Unit 4, Exercise 6.
Well, my biggest strengths are paying attention to detail and accuracy. Unfortunately, this slows me down and sometimes things get a little behind.
How do you see the relationship with your team?
Okay. I don't seem to have any problems there.
And the output of your team? Tell me about that.
Well, we were on target for the first 3 months, and then we fell behind because of staff difficulties.
To be quite frank, Peter, you were actually 25% down for 6 months of the year.
Yes, well, that's because Antonio was on sick leave for so long.
I see. When did you realize that his absence would cause problems with meeting targets?
Well, I knew it would from the beginning.
Then, could you tell me why you didn't come to see me, Peter?
You were away on that project in Turkey, and I had hoped to solve the problem myself by working overtime, and with the help of Karina Wielands.
So what happened then? Why didn't it work?
Karina had problems at home and couldn't put in extra time, and I had too much to do with the day-to-day stuff. No one else was able to do it.
With respect, I was only away for a month. Why didn't you raise this issue at the regular team meetings? I'm concerned you didn't feel able to discuss it with me.
Actually, I prefer to deal with these things myself, and you're always busy.
But the results are not very impressive, Peter. Your team can't help to resolve the problems if you don't discuss them. You need to think about delegating more to other team members. This will reduce the pressure on yourself. So, how do you suggest we go on? How can I help you?
Well, perhaps we could have another team member until Antonio returns. And maybe I need some training in leadership skills and time management. Actually, there's a bit of a cultural problem with Antonio too. Before he went sick, he was having difficulty dealing with the Austrian formality and wasn't very happy here. That caused a few problems with other members of the team.
Okay. Well, neither of the first 2 suggestions should present a problem. I'll talk to our production director this afternoon. And I know about Antonio's problems. He has discussed them with me, and we're sending him on some cultural training when he's back. We may do it for all your team as it's such a mixed group. But I'd like to add one other thing. I think you and I need to improve our communication, Peter. So let's meet weekly for a while and see how we go, okay?
OK, that sounds good.
Right. Going back to the question of output, we have to get your team's output up to scratch as soon as possible. I'd like you to arrange a meeting with your team and discuss how you can improve performance in the coming months, okay?
Yes, fine.
Finally, on a personal note, Peter, how is your wife settling in? I think there were a few problems initially.
Yes, that's right. Actually, she's now found a job in her field. She's a physiotherapist, and she's very happy with it. So that has taken a lot of worry off my shoulders.
Unit 5, Exercise 1.
As you know, we need to review our benefits package to bring it in line with our offices in Denmark and the Netherlands. What is your view on this? Paula?
Yes, I think we need to introduce more family-friendly benefits and also flexible working hours. Too many staff are working overtime and having problems with their work-life balance.
Could I have your input, Steve?
Yes. What exactly do you mean by work-life balance, Paula?
It means trying to achieve a better balance between work and home life.
I see. Well, I'm definitely in favour of flexible working hours. However, I think we should also look closely at childcare and even elder care provisions to encourage some of our female staff back to work. In fact, I'd like to submit a proposal on this at a future meeting.
Good idea. How much time do you need? Could you submit something at our regular meeting in a fortnight?
That's fine.
Paula, could you please prepare a summary of all our current benefits and ask accounts to print off a list of the annual costs? These subjects are high on the agenda at the next international meeting in Zurich, and I'd like us to have some good input for the meeting.
Yes, OK. By the way, I've had several discussions with our colleagues in Amsterdam and Copenhagen on their ideas for new initiatives on flexible working, so I'll fill you in on that too.
Good, and I'll give you the details of the new profit-sharing bonus the directors have been discussing.
Unit 5, Exercise 9.
As you know, we haven't reviewed salaries for over a year. The board has agreed a maximum 5% increase from the 1st of October, and I'd like you to come back to me with recommendations for all your staff. I've produced a list here with the relevant data about each employee in marketing.
That's fine. I've got one or two people who deserve more than 5%, particularly those who came from London and New York last year. They actually took a drop in salary, and they've reminded me about this several times. It's 18 months since we had our last raise, too.
Well, we might be able to give more in one or two cases if you reward less in others. Don't forget, the rate of inflation is not expected to rise much in Britain this year, and so far, touch wood, we haven't had to make any staff redundant.
What's the position likely to be on the bonuses at the end of the year? Will they be slashed? And are there any other staff developments on the horizon?
Well, we are proposing to carry out the performance reviews in November and early December, and that will determine the final bonus amounts. We're trying to separate the salary review from the performance review in future. We're also looking at flexible working and maternity and childcare issues. Your department is particularly vulnerable here, as you have less staff, and therefore a number of people who work too many hours. Also, there are several women on maternity leave at present who I believe you would like back. Frankly, Tim, I'm worried about the number of hours some of your staff are working. It has to be contained.
OK. I hope we'll have the opportunity to discuss some of these issues at the management meeting. Thanks, Sophie. I'll get back to you within a week.
Unit 6, Exercise 3.
I'm afraid we've got a problem, Klaus. The 3% increase management agreed for the plant has been rejected by the union.
Oh, what's behind it?
They want the same increase as the white-collar staff, at least 5%. The union representatives held a meeting with their members last night and failed to reach agreement.
What was your counter-argument?
We haven't had an official meeting yet. That will be next week. But I told them that sales were down and that if things got worse, we might have to think about some redundancies in Amsterdam. I also reminded them that they had a 3% review a year ago.
Did you know that the white-collar staff haven't had a review in salary for 2 years now? We froze their salaries because we had lost a huge contract. And then there was a recession. But we decided to review the shop floor workers to avoid industrial action. All this happened just before you joined.
I see. Well, I know they want at least 5%. It appears there have been rumours of an economic downturn in the industry and the transfer of work to the Polish subsidiary. So, of course, the staff are nervous about the future of the plant. Despite this, they still feel 3% is too low and doesn't compensate them for loss of overtime over the last 6 months.
It doesn't make any sense. But I must say I thought it might happen.
We've got to plan our tactics. We can't offer 5%, that's for sure. But we don't want any strikes at present. Let's talk to the management committee again before the meeting.
Unit 6, Exercise 8.
Thank you for calling the meeting. We're happy to meet you today to work out a solution. We'd like to start by welcoming everyone and restating our proposals. Then perhaps you could outline why the offer was rejected by your members. Klaus.
Yes, a 3% increase has been agreed, which we consider as a reasonable and fair offer, given the current economic situation, and the fact that our sales are down. The outlook isn't a very bright one at present, but we think things will improve in the next 6 to 9 months, provided we can contain costs. I'd also like to remind you that you had a 3% review a year ago, while the salaries of the white-collar workers were frozen.
But our members aren't happy with 3%. And since overtime was stopped 6 months ago, they feel they have suffered enough. It's a difficult situation, that's true, but they want a minimum of 5%. What's more, they are threatening industrial action if they don't get it.
That's a bit unfair, isn't it? I heard there are some rumours going around about transferring work to a Polish subsidiary. Has this got anything to do with it?
Yes, that's right. They are worried that the plant is facing closure. That will be a disaster for an area like this, which is already facing high unemployment. You know what rumours are like.
We'd like to reassure you that, as far as we are aware, there is no plan to close the plant or transfer business to Poland. Management has asked us to give you their assurances on this point. We've studied the figures, and the bottom line is that there is not much money in the pot, so we have to reach a compromise.
I'm sorry, but why should we believe this? Outsourcing is happening everywhere at present. Cheaper labour, cheaper factories.
Well, let's not get too hot under the collar, Bob. We consider ourselves to be a fair and reasonable employer with a consistent record of commitment and honesty with our employees. There's also the Dutch plant to consider. As I mentioned when we met before, if sales continue to fall in Amsterdam, we'll have a big problem here. We think we can deal with it, but if we have to pay out more money here, then it's unlikely we can. Listen, we'd like to put our cards on the table. If your members accept 3% now, we will give a further 1.5% in 9 months, as long as there isn't a substantial drop in sales. But we want your assurances that there will be no industrial action.
Could we have 10 minutes to talk about it outside?
Certainly. Let's break for coffee and meet back in 20 minutes.
OK, we think this is a reasonable compromise. Our members will agree 3% now and 1.5% in 9 months. And you have our assurances there will be no industrial action.
That's it then. A successful conclusion for everybody. Thank you.
Good. I'll send you written confirmation tomorrow, which you can post on the notice boards around the shop floor if you like. The 3% review will take effect from the 1st of March.